Hi, my name is Dr. Matt Wund, and I'm a professor in the biology department at the College of New Jersey in Ewing, New Jersey. My PhD research focused on bat echolocation, and during my postdoc, my focus switched to behavior, evolution, and phenotypic plasticity in stickleback fish, and that's work that I continue now. Now I'm a professor at a primarily undergraduate institution where my focus is on teaching and research with undergraduate students. In my scientific career, there have been some publications that really took years of work to produce and were just really hard to accomplish. And along the way, I had to train myself in a lot of techniques to get that work done. So seeing those projects come to fruition, and especially seeing people cite these papers, really feels great. I get especially proud when my work influences the work of other scientists. And considering that I teach at a primarily undergraduate institution, I don't have any graduate students or postdocs or any kind of large lab apparatus. So publishing with undergraduates and seeing them unpublished papers is really rewarding. And recently I was awarded an NSF grant, and that's something I've been trying to do, get NSF funding since I was in graduate school. So sticking with that goal for 20 plus years and finally getting funding for a project that I'm really excited about and that NSF is excited about is really satisfying. Experienced a lot of challenges, but the first major failure I experienced in my graduate school career was when I failed part of my qualifying exams on my first attempt. So I went to the University of Michigan and was in the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology. And our qualifying exams at the time happened in the fall of the second year. We had to give a research presentation to our department based upon our first year of research. We had to take a 2 to 3 hour oral exam with the qualifying exam committee. And we had to write an original 20 to 30 page review paper using the literature to test some novel hypothesis. And it was the paper component that I failed. I didn't really understand what writing a review paper meant and the scope of what was being asked of us. So I wrote what I thought was a good paper, and I ended up failing that component. What made it worse personally was that my whole cohort was going to be finding out the results in the same day, and we decided to have a party at someone's house to celebrate the people who passed. And so, one of us brought up, what if someone doesn't pass? And the collective decision was, oh, well, that person doesn't have to come to the party if they don't feel up for it. So people started suggesting my apartment as the venue, and I was like, what if I don't pass? But everyone was telling me, oh, no, it'll be fine, you're going to pass. So I ended up hosting a party for everyone who passed when I had failed the exam. And as each person came into the party, I had to tell them, like, no, I failed my paper. And so I had to spend the next few hours of that party really uncomfortable, but also the next 6 months in grad school writing an entirely new paper. So I was a first generation college student. And at the time, I didn't even really know what part of being that group meant. And so my parents had associate's degrees from vocational schools, but they had never gone to a 4-year college, let alone graduate school. So they didn't, their understanding of what I was going through was really limited. And your family always thinks, oh, you're smart, so of course you're fine. But I was like, no, I'm around a lot of really smart people, and this is a really difficult thing I'm trying to do. And I was coming from a small state school that no one had ever really heard of. And I was in class with students who had gone to Ivy League schools and these famous programs. So I was just generally already questioning my sense of belonging, and failing the qualifying exams really seemed to validate that self-doubt. Moreover, I had thought I was a good writer, but my advisor was always critical of everything I wrote, and I just didn't understand what the problem was. So failing that paper was really demoralizing. And there wasn't anything else I wanted to do besides becoming an academic scientist. I didn't have a plan B, and it didn't seem like I was good enough for plan A. So I began to think of the failure also as a failure of my entire character, not just of my abilities as a scientist. I think my sense of who I was as a person was so wrapped up in my career that I absolutely felt like I failed as a person. So this sense of failure was 100% coming from me. I wasn't getting any of that from the students and faculty in my department. On the contrary, everyone was treating me like I belonged and telling me that they believed in me and cared about me and that they were there to support me. It's really the voice in my own head that was making me feel bad. So my advisor suggested that I take a graduate science writing course that was offered in our department. And that course turned out to be one of the most useful courses I've ever taken in my life at any level of education. It taught me how to write so much more effectively, which helped immediately in graduate school and has continued to pay dividends in my career. I also had a conversation with each of the committee members, and they were all really supportive and encouraging. They knew that I could succeed and that this was a challenge they wanted me to overcome. And so it ended up being a lot of extra work and effort, but it was absolutely worthwhile. And I really appreciated the fact that they believed in me. Several other faculty members gave me encouragement too. And fortunately, the rational part of my brain heard what they were saying. So more generally, when I'm upset about things, talking about my problems doesn't make me feel better. Solving my problems makes me feel better. So I cope by developing a strategy, making a plan, getting organized, and then executing the plan. So in this case, once I got to work outlining a new paper, getting the topic approved, and eventually writing it, I felt empowered. Like, okay, I can see a way out of this hole. I need to turn my headlamp on and find a way out of the tunnel. One word of caution though, wanting to solve the problem and get back on the horse is generally adaptive, but it can be maladaptive in the sense that sometimes I'm so eager to overcome my failure or my setback that I rush to a bad solution that really isn't well thought out. So fortunately, that wasn't the case with my qualifying exams, and the second paper that I wrote passed. But there were other future failures in grad school in which my eagerness to solve a problem or overcome a setback prevented me from finding the best solution. So sometimes, particularly early in my career, I didn't really allow myself time to breathe, be sad for a while at what had happened, and then think clearly about a way forward. In the long run, this was one of the most important experiences of my professional life. Having failed and then learned from the experience and eventually overcoming that failure, I gained confidence that when subsequent failures happen, I have the ability to work through them. It's really better to call all these experiences setbacks. They'd only be a failure if I failed to grow and learn from the situations. So when students are struggling with confidence, I tell them that if I come off as a confident person, it's because I am. But my confidence isn't that I'm not going to make a mistake. My confidence stems from knowing that when I do make a mistake or experience failure or a setback, I'll figure it out, solve it, address it, learn from it, and move on. So I know that when I fail, I have the ability to handle it because I've had lots of practice. And finally, I also learned that I needed to ask for help. And that's okay, that's how these things are supposed to work. I couldn't overcome my failures and setbacks in grad school without getting help and support from others. And I learned that that's okay and appropriate to get help from others. My first piece of advice is that it's okay to take your time after failure to come up with an action plan. Sometimes, as I said before, I would rush into new solutions that weren't as strong as they could have been if I had just taken my time to really think things through. It's like if you're lost in the woods, don't just run in a random direction. Take the time to orient yourself and pick the right direction to get out of the situation. Everyone's coping mechanisms are going to be different, so try to identify your own positive coping mechanisms as well as your negative coping mechanisms and know yourself a little better to make good choices about how you respond to these situations. Also, find out who your advocates are, both personally and professionally. So you're a multidimensional person and you need support for your whole self. Personally, there's more to you than just your project and your work, so you need to lean on certain people, friends and family, to remind you of that. But you also have to address your professional shortcomings, and you can't avoid that. So it's likely that a different set of people can provide the practical support to help you grow professionally. So failure is going to happen. You can either let it end you or help it improve you. It's hard work to learn from failure, both in terms of the emotional work and the actual work. But you have to try and see it as an opportunity. It's painful as you go through it, but someday you'll look back on these experiences as some of the most important things you've experienced in your professional growth. And it's your choice to make it a productive or experience and a positive experience or not. So thanks for watching Failsafe Science. Again, my name is Matt Wund, and I hope my story helps graduate students feel less isolated and alone. Just always remember that you're not an imposter. You're a professional problem solver. That's a really tough job, but you're up to the challenge.